beautiful London. So please welcome Tim. The screen is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's a very long introduction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to explain a tiny bit more about piano, I actually moved to piano first about a year, doing a bit of it in the middle of it. And what I'm going to talk about today is just giving you an overview of my reading market, because we're moving development to 2023. And just to set a little bit of context on that, to explain what we do. We are a software and consultancy. We have an end-to-end platform that helps publishers and media companies to understand their audience, to segment their audience, and then monetize that audience. The reason why we have a very good insight into what's happening is we now have about 500 clients worldwide within media and publishing across the globe. We are, without doubt, we started as a US company. We've grown significantly in the last 2-3 years across through EMEA, and APAC is our next growth region. But we already have a number of clients here. We work with publishing companies in the Philippines, in Singapore, in Malaysia, and in Hong Kong. And we, because of this number of clients, have very large scale, and we understand how audiences behave, how they move, what they do with, on websites. And therefore, we have a very good understanding as to how publishers and media companies can monetize that audience more effectively, whether it's through advertising, whether it's through subscription models. And, you know, 2022 is what we hope, I think we all hope, will be a bit of a bounce back from the pandemic. The impact of COVID on publishing, as we all know, has been fairly dramatic. It impacted advertising revenues. And publishers were kind of struggling to understand how they should develop those new revenue streams to help their businesses to maintain the level of revenue, if not to grow it. And what we certainly saw at the beginning of the pandemic, certainly across Europe, was a whole-scale adoption of subscription models. You know, companies that we'd seen who were hesitating had gone straight for subscription models and have seen significant success. Within APAC, I certainly feel that we're on the cusp of the same kind of adoption happening within the next 12 to 15 months. But that is not at the expense of advertising models. We think it's going to be a combined approach where publishers are looking to subscription models to monetize a premium audience, whilst at the same time keeping that audience that will generate page views and enable them to present advertising opportunities and maintain advertising revenue levels. And contrary to the view of many people within the industry, these are not disparate objectives. And we feel that during 2022, you will see those, the successful companies, those who adopt that combined approach. And, you know, the challenge, therefore, in adopting that approach is how to present the right model to generate subscription or reader revenue, whilst at the same time ensuring that you have content that is available for users to consume on a free basis. Because of the volume of clients we have a huge amount of benchmarks. We understand user behavior and metrics, and we can therefore rank sites in their performance and make recommendations to clients as to, based on the type of audience they have, the type of strategy they should deploy. So to reiterate the thing, we see two big trends that will matter for media businesses across APAC going into 2022. We think there will be a rebalancing of subscription and advertising revenue streams as advertising comes back post, I hope, pandemic. The other really important issue is to understand the implications that the shifting privacy landscape is going to have on digital businesses and the way they operate. And I'll touch on this slightly at the end of the talk. So let's just talk about subscriptions and advertising revenue. There's no doubt subscriptions and advertising dominate media revenue on a global basis. There's no doubt that advertising dominates media revenue on an APAC basis. But there are certain titles across this region where you can see how important reader revenue and subs models have become. You can take South China Morning Post in Hong Kong, who are a client of ours. You can see how important the reintroduction of a paid content model has been for them over the last 18 months. And then you have companies such as Singapore Press Holdings, who are not a client of ours, but the way they've reorganized their business in recent months and clearly stated that their objectives are focused on driving subscriber revenue and driving reader revenue from wholesale adoption of subscriptions. But it's these two revenue streams that are the most important. It's not at the expense of others, but of course events haven't been possible for the last 2 years, and it's not clear whether they're going to be able to come back through 2022. So to reiterate the point, reader revenue, subscriptions, and advertising will dominate the discussion, will be the key important strategies that media companies across the region will focus on. There's no doubt, as I've said already, that subscription revenues grew dramatically in 2020. We saw some extraordinary increases for brands who already had a subs model, but actually those who were launching did see significant success during the early months of the pandemic. But that trend had continued through 2021. And I think the most interesting thing for me, I've been around subscriptions for 11 years in media, but I think even 4 years ago, within Europe, I had companies saying to me, I'm just not sure whether a subscription model is going to work for my audience. Those concerns have disappeared in Europe. And it's interesting in APAC now, when I talk to clients or prospective clients, whether in the Philippines or Malaysia, or Singapore or Australia, that same question is coming up now. People are saying, I'm just not sure whether our audience are ready for it. I'm not sure whether our predominantly mobile audience are going to pay for content. And our view, based on the data we see and the engagement we see, is that over the course of this year, you will see those concerns disappear because there is a willingness to pay. There is a respect for high quality content and a value derived from journalism that is delivering something of value to the user. And, as a result of that, I fully expect subscription models to work across the region. I think there are challenges, however. Payment methods are an obvious one. In Indonesia, you've got a low predominance of debit cards, for example, and therefore digital wallets are a very important payment method. And I think those kind of challenges are things that need to be overcome through the course of this year for it to work. But we do expect the growth rate to continue. Just in terms of privacy, there is no doubt that there is a move and an acceleration of a move away from anonymous tracking on the internet towards an internet based on consent. And what we mean by that is where the users are in control. In the US, you have a number of states now who have fairly strict privacy laws. There's obviously GDPR within Europe, and that is now being enforced. And people are receiving significant fines and threats of fines. Within Asia, it's interesting. We are starting to get countries who are starting the emulation of those kind of privacy legislation moves. And of course, this is backed up by big tech. So, as we know, sort of in the autumn of last year, Apple activated, the ability for users to remove themselves from tracking. And of course, Google is talking about ending third-party cookies. These are significant changes to the way in which the internet has worked for publishers, for the way in which publishers have monetized their audience. And this will dominate discussion through this year. And there will be significant efforts and moves made to ensure that publishing has a way to combat these changes. Because from an advertising perspective, the end of third-party cookies is a dramatic change. And of course, the impact of this is that digital media companies and publishers are really going to have to get closer to understanding their own audience. And things, the actions that we feel publishers need to think about is you've got to keep an eye on regulation. You've got to understand how the rules regarding privacy will get tighter over the course of this year, over the next 18 months, 2 years, and understand the impact that might have on your business. Secondly, collecting data about your users, zero and first-party data. So zero being data that those users have offered up to you, so name, email address, and then of course first-party data that you have collected from those users as a result of their registration on your site. But collecting consent, collecting identity and data from those users is the most important thing you should be thinking about, because it underpins successful subscription and successful advertising strategies. Being able to capture enough data to have a valuable segment of users, it's essential for successful advertising campaigns moving forward. And of course, to collect that data, you're going to have to focus on building strong user relationships and getting the trust of those users. And because of that trust, those users will willingly hand over data for you and engage with you. And, whatever, the sequence of your model, the balance of your publishing revenue model, it's crucial that, an active brand loyal audience who and you have data about, it's essential, absolutely essential for successful revenue generation. And engagement will be essential to that. Understanding how readers use your site, encouraging them to come back to your site, understanding their activity on your site, understanding more about them, and being able to place them into segments that have value is crucial, because you're not going to be able to rely on third-party data sources, on third-party tracking, and that whole advertising world of cookies. The change is going to be significant. So I think I have timed that almost to perfection. If there are any questions, very happy to take them. If anyone would like to pop them into the Q&A.